Commander Ethan Gray stood on the bridge of the Earth Alliance vessel Defiance watching the stars stretch and distort as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The massive Confederation diplomatic station hung in space before them, a gleaming silver structure that reminded him of a giant snowflake. "Quite a sight," said Lieutenant Olivia Walsh, his security chief. Her hand rested casually near her sidearm, a habit formed through years of military service. Gray nodded. "Remember, we're guests here. The first humans to make official contact with the Galactic Confederation. Let's try not to start any wars today." Walsh smiled tightly. "No promises, sir." The diplomatic team gathered in the shuttle bay, 5 humans chosen to represent Earth. Besides Gray and Walsh, there was Dr. Alan Pierce, a xenobiologist with kind eyes and nervous hands. Communications Officer Kate Winters, whose gift for languages had helped decipher the Confederation's initial messages, and Ambassador Diana Wells, a tall woman with silver hair who had negotiated peace treaties during Earth's last global conflict. As their shuttle approached the station, Gray studied the alien vessels docked nearby. Some looked like elegant sea creatures, others like geometric puzzles. All made the human shuttle look primitive by comparison. 12 species in their alliance, Pierce said, reviewing his notes. Some have been spacefaring for thousands of years. Ambassador Wells straightened her uniform, and yet they reached out to us. There must be something they want. The docking procedure went smoothly. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by a delegation of aliens. Gray recognized several species from the briefing materials. The tall, blue-skinned aliens were Altarians. The reptilian beings with 4 arms were Keldorans. Others were less familiar. An Altarian stepped forward. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I am Zex Vor, Senior Ambassador of the Confederation Council." His translator pendant converted his musical language to English. "We are pleased to welcome Earth to our community of peaceful worlds." Gray noticed how the aliens kept a careful distance, their body language suggesting curiosity mixed with caution. He offered the greeting gesture they had practiced. "Earth thanks you for your welcome. We come in peace and friendship." The tour of the station revealed technology far beyond human capabilities. Gravity manipulation, matter fabrication, biological engineering that had eliminated disease. The human team tried to hide their amazement, but Gray could see the aliens noticing their reactions. During the formal reception, Zexfor approached Gray privately. "Your species is peculiar, Commander. Your biology and psychological makeup differ significantly from other Class 3 developing species." "Class 3?" Gray asked. "Peaceful agrarians," Zexfor explained. "Species that develop cooperative social structures and minimal territorial aggression. Your file indicates Earth has achieved global peace and unified governance." Gray chose his words carefully. Earth has indeed achieved peace, but our path was complicated. Before Zexwar could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The elegant reception dissolved into confusion as aliens rushed to safety. "Pirate vessels," a Keldoran security officer announced. They breached the outer defense grid. Walsh was instantly at Gray's side, weapon drawn. "Sir, we should get our people to safety." Gray saw fear in the alien's eyes. Not concern, genuine terror. "Lieutenant, secure our delegation, then offer assistance to station security." While Ambassador Wells and the others were escorted to a secure area, Gray and Walsh joined the station's security response. The pirates, reptilian mercenaries called Vraxix, had boarded the station seeking technology and hostages. What happened next changed everything. Walsh organized the station's security forces with efficient precision. The human security team moved with coordinated aggression that clearly surprised the alien defenders. When 3 Vrax cornered a group of civilian diplomats, Walsh's team responded with controlled violence that neutralized the threat in seconds. Gray himself disarmed a pirate leader, using hand-to-hand combat techniques that left the Confederation security officers staring in shock. Once the situation was contained, Gray noticed General Moore, the Keldoran military representative, watching him with unblinking reptilian eyes. "You fight like you've done it for millennia," Moore said quietly. "We protect what matters to us," Gray replied. Later, as the diplomatic team regrouped, Communications Officer Winters pulled Gray aside. "Sir, I accessed their species database during the tour. There's something odd about our classification." She showed him her tablet. Earth was listed as a Class 3 developing species, with notes indicating. Dr. Alan Pierce spent hours in the Confederation's biological archives. The more he studied, the more his concern grew. He found Commander Gray in the Earth delegation's temporary quarters on Harmony Station. "Commander, these Confederation species, they're fundamentally different from us," Pierce said, spreading his notes across the table. "Most evolved without significant predators. Their homeworlds had stable climates, abundant resources, and minimal competition." Gray studied the comparative biology charts. "You're saying they never needed to fight?" "Not like we did. Their stress responses are minimal. No adrenaline surges, no fight or flight reactions. Even their immune systems are cooperative rather than aggressive." Officer Kate Winters joined them, her expression troubled. "That explains their reaction to our combat display. I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're calling us aberrant and potentially unstable." Gray rubbed his temples. "Keep this information restricted for now. Ambassador Wells needs to complete initial membership negotiations before the Confederation decides we're too dangerous to include." The next day, Captain Samantha Reeves arrived with the Earth vessel Sentinel for a scheduled military exchange. The Confederation had requested a demonstration of human defensive capabilities. "Nothing too aggressive," Gray warned Reeves before the demonstration. "These people are sensitive." Reeves nodded. "Standard training exercise only, sir." The observation deck filled with Confederation military officials from various species. Fleet Commander Yultak, a tall avian being with iridescent feathers, greeted them. "We are eager to observe your protective protocols." What followed shocked the Confederation observers. The human security teams ran combat drills that included hand-to-hand fighting, weapons training, and tactical simulations. What humans considered basic training appeared barbaric to species that had never evolved aggressive instincts. "You deliberately injure each other for practice?" Yultak asked, his feathers flat against his body in distress. "How else would we prepare for actual combat?" Reeves replied, genuinely confused. A Keldoran military advisor leaned toward Yultak, speaking in their native language. Officer Winters, standing nearby, translated for Gray. "They have warfare embedded in their very essence. They train with actual pain. These are not peaceful developers. They are something else entirely." Later, in private, Fleet Commander Yultak confronted Ambassador Wells. "Your species' approach to defense is concerning. The Confederation maintains peace through cooperation, not violence. Humanity has learned the value of peace precisely because we understand war." Wells replied carefully. "Our protective capabilities ensure we can defend those who cannot defend themselves." Yultak's eyes narrowed. An interesting perspective. Some might call it a warrior philosophy. That evening, Communications Officer Winters intercepted a partial transmission between Confederation officials. She brought it to Gray immediately. "Sir, they're talking about something called the Purifiers, a faction within the Confederation concerned with threats to their peaceful order. They've taken special interest in humanity." Gray reviewed the fragmented message. "Any threat assessment?" Nothing concrete, but one phrase stood out: genetic memory of warfare. "They think our capacity for violence is ingrained at a biological level." Lieutenant Walsh entered, looking concerned. "Commander, our security systems detected unauthorized scans of the Defiance and the Sentinel. They're particularly interested in our weapons systems." Gray made a decision. "We continue as planned. Peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange. But increase security and encryption protocols. If the Confederation has concerns about us, We need to know exactly what they're looking for." 2 days later, Dr. Pierce discovered something disturbing in the medical scans the Confederation had performed on volunteer human crew members. They're mapping our neurochemistry, specifically our stress responses and aggression triggers, Pierce explained, showing Gray the data. "Look at their notes. They're shocked by our ability to function under conditions they consider traumatic." "What are they comparing us to?" Gray asked. Pierce hesitated. "There are references to something called architect genetic markers, but those files are heavily restricted." Ambassador Wells joined their meeting, looking troubled. "The Confederation Council is divided about Earth's membership application. Some see great potential in alliance with humans. Others seem afraid." Gray stared out the viewport at the massive Confederation fleet gathered for their military exercises. Ships of elegant design, beautiful and advanced, but he now recognized they were built for show, not warfare. 6 months passed. Earth's membership negotiations with the Confederation progressed slowly but steadily. The human delegation expanded to include military advisors, scientists, and cultural experts. Among them was Colonel Vincent Harmon, a veteran of Earth's last regional conflict and an expert in strategic defense. The emergency alarms blared across Harmony Station without warning. Commander Gray rushed to the main council chamber. There he found representatives from all 12 Confederation species gathered around a holographic display. "The outer worlds of Sector 7 are under attack," announced Fleet Commander Yultak, his feathers bristling with distress. "An unknown force has bypassed our warning beacons." The display showed ships unlike any Gray had seen before, asymmetrical vessels that seemed to pulse with red energy. They moved in perfect coordination, overwhelming the Confederation defense stations with ruthless efficiency. "Who are they?" Ambassador Wells asked. A small jellyfish-like being floated forward. "They call themselves the Vorlak Empire. We believe them to be merely legends, stories from another galaxy." "You've had contact before?" Gray asked. "Not for thousands of years," Zexvor explained. "Our ancient records speak of them as a hive-mind species that consumes all in its path. We thought them extinct or mythical." Colonel Harmon studied the battle footage carefully. "Your defense forces are retreating without engaging. They are following standard protocol," Yultak said stiffly. "Protect civilian populations first. Avoid loss of life, while surrendering your territory," Harmon noted. "What's your counterattack plan?" The council chamber fell silent. Gray noticed uncomfortable glances between the Confederation representatives. Ambassador Wells realized the truth first. "You don't have one, do you?" Zexvor's skin paled slightly. "The Confederation has been at peace for over 4,000 years, Ambassador. Our military exists to maintain that peace, not to wage war." "Then what happens when someone brings war to you?" Lieutenant Walsh asked bluntly. The Confederation Council convened an emergency session. Behind closed doors, the truth emerged. Their weapons were designed for minimal damage. Their tactics focused on containment rather than victory, and their personnel had no experience with actual combat. "Our civilization shows peace," explained Elder Moore of the Keldorans. "After the ancient conflicts, our ancestors decided that violence itself was the enemy." Colonel Harmon requested permission to review all battle footage. After 12 hours of analysis, he called for a meeting with both human and Confederation leadership. "The Vorlak have 3 critical weaknesses," Harmon explained, pointing to tactical displays. "Their ships cluster too tightly, their attack patterns are predictable, and they abandon damaged vessels." "You suggest we exploit these weaknesses?" asked Yultak. "I suggest we hit them hard enough that they retreat," Harmon replied. "Target their command ships, disrupt their formation, and force them to abandon their advance." "Your strategy would cause significant casualties," Zexvor noted with obvious discomfort. "Yes," Harmon said simply. "War has casualties." The Confederation Council members looked horrified. Ambassador Wells stepped in diplomatically. What the Colonel means is that sometimes protecting the many requires difficult choices. Earth has learned this lesson through painful experience. While the Council debated, Gray received a private message from Dr. Pierce. "Commander, I need to see you immediately." In Pierce's makeshift lab, screens displayed comparative biological data. "I've been examining tissue samples from the Vorlak attackers," Pierce explained. "They're completely different from Confederation species, evolved for conflict, like us." "Like us?" Gray asked. "Their biology shows adaptations for aggression, territorial defense, and hierarchical command structures. The difference is, they never developed beyond it. Their entire society is built around conquest." Later, at the council meeting, Gray watched as the members continued to debate nonviolent responses while the Vorlak claimed 3 more systems. "We could attempt communication," suggested one member. "We could establish buffer zones," offered another. Colonel Harmon finally stood. "While you debate, people are dying. The Vorlak understand only strength. Let Earth vessels lead a counteroffensive." Shocked silence followed. "You would fight our battle?" Elder Moore asked. "We would defend innocent lives," Gray clarified. "It's what humans do." The council withdrew to consider the offer. During their absence, Communications Officer Winters made a disturbing discovery. "The Vorlak communications we've intercepted," she told Gray quietly. "They refer to humans specifically as the awakened ones. They know who we are. The Earth vessels Resolute Intrepid and Valiant arrived at Nebulon Prime, a Confederation world under imminent threat from Vorlak forces. Brigadier General Lisa Carter commanded the small human fleet from the bridge of the Resolute. "Deploy defensive perimeter," Carter ordered, "and get me a direct link to the Nebulon Defense Coordinator." The face that appeared on the screen belonged to a pale, fish-like being with large eyes. "Greetings, Earth General. I am Coordinator Pelnav. We are unprepared for this conflict." Carter nodded grimly. "My team will help organize your defenses. We need to evacuate civilians from the projected landing zones immediately." When human soldiers began ground operations, they discovered a troubling reality. Confederation troops froze in combat situations. Many became physically ill at the sight of violence. Lieutenant Ryan Foster reported to Carter after the first skirmish. "General, they're not cowards. It's biological. Violence literally traumatizes them. Their hands shake, they can't focus, some even collapse. They never evolved for warfare," Carter realized. "Find the ones who can handle it best. We'll form mixed units, our soldiers providing combat support, theirs handling evacuation and medical response." Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Dr. Pierce worked with Altarian scientist Trolvok to understand the fundamental differences between their species. "This is fascinating," Trolvok said, examining human blood samples. "Your bodies produce compounds during stress that ours simply don't. Adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins, they create a feedback loop that actually improves combat performance." Pierce nodded. "Fight or flight response. Basic human biology. To us, it looks like you were designed for warfare," Trolvok said quietly. "Your pupil dilation improves targeting. Your blood clotting accelerates during injury. Your pain response can be suppressed by combat focus." "Not designed," Pierce corrected. "Evolved. Thousands of generations of natural selection on a dangerous planet." Trolvok's large eyes blinked slowly. "You are biological war machines who chose peace. The Vorlak are biological war machines who chose conquest. The difference is significant." On the ground, Lieutenant Foster established a training program to help Confederation troops overcome their biological aversion to conflict. He focused on breathing techniques, mental preparation, and protective instincts rather than aggression. "Don't think about hurting the enemy," he instructed a group of trembling Nebulon defenders. "Think about protecting your families. Focus on the people behind you, not the threat in front of you." The approach helped somewhat. Though Confederation troops couldn't match human combat performance, they began to function in supporting roles. 3 days later, Vorlak dropships breached atmosphere. The battle for Nebulon Prime began in earnest. General Carter directed operations from a forward command post. "They're targeting civilian centers deliberately," she noted grimly. "Standard terror tactics." "Why would they do this?" asked Pelnav, visibly distressed. "There is no strategic value." "Because they know it hurts you," Carter explained. "They understand your weakness." The human forces fought with disciplined ferocity that shocked both their allies and enemies. Carter deployed her limited troops strategically, focusing on civilian evacuation routes and critical infrastructure. During the heaviest fighting, a Vorlak strike team targeted a school shelter. Lieutenant Foster's unit intercepted them. What happened next became legendary among Confederation observers. Foster's team formed a defensive line, absorbing heavy casualties but refusing to yield. When Foster was wounded, he continued fighting, rallying his troops with a primal battle cry that Confederation recordings later analyzed as triggering specific neural responses in other humans. The Vorlak forces, encountering resistance unlike anything in their experience, eventually retreated. The cost was high. 17 human soldiers died protecting over 300 Nebulon children. In orbit, Carter's vessels engaged the Vorlak fleet. Though outnumbered, the human ships maneuvered aggressively, focusing fire on command vessels as Colonel Harmon had suggested. The tactic worked. After losing 3 key ships, the Vorlak force withdrew from the system. The battle for Nebulon Prime became the first clear victory against the Vorlak, and a revelation for the Confederation. "I don't understand," Pelnav told Carter afterward, watching human medics treat both allies and enemies with equal care. "You fight with such violence, yet show compassion afterward. You risk your lives for people you barely know." "That's what makes us human," Carter replied simply. Later, aboard the Resolute Asterisk, Dr. Pierce showed Carter the preliminary analysis from the battle. Ambassador Diana Wells gained access to the restricted Confederation archives through a special request to the Council. She spent days searching through ancient records, looking for any mention of beings similar to humans. On the 4th day, she found something. "The architects," she whispered, reading the faded text on her screen. The record described an ancient species that once served as peacekeepers throughout the galaxy. Their physical descriptions matched humans almost exactly, though the records dated back over 50,000 years. Wells immediately contacted Commander Gray. "You need to see this," she said, transmitting the files securely. "The ancient peacekeepers they call architects. They're us, Ethan, or at least our ancestors." Gray studied the records with growing amazement. "This can't be coincidence." "But how? Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old." "Something happened," Wells suggested. "Something that made us start over." Meanwhile, on the contested world of Helios IV, Chief Engineer Greg Martins worked alongside Keldoran archaeologist Drenler. They were excavating ruins discovered beneath the main battlefield. "These structures predate Confederation records," Drenler explained, carefully removing debris from an ancient control panel. "We found similar sites on 17 worlds, all abandoned approximately 48,000 years ago." Martinez examined the panel, noting strange markings that seemed oddly familiar. "Has anyone been able to activate these systems?" "No. They appear dead, with no power source we can identify." Martinez touched the surface curiously. To everyone's shock, lights flickered around his hand. The panel hummed to life. "How did you do that?" Drenler asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. "I didn't do anything," Martins replied, equally shocked. Drenler scanned the now active panel. "It's reading your DNA. The system is keyed to respond to specific genetic markers." Human genetic markers, Martins realized. The panel projected a holographic message. The language was unknown to Drenler, but Martinez felt a strange familiarity. "I can almost understand it," he said. "It's like an extremely ancient form of Indo-European, like the root language that eventually became Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek. They recorded the message and sent it to Communications Officer Winters. After 2 days of intensive work, she managed a rough translation. To our descendants, we chose isolation and regression to escape the cycle of violence. When the guardians become conquerors, all suffer. We scattered our seed across the stars, hiding our true nature even from ourselves. If you have awakened this message, the enemy has returned. Remember what we forgot. Strength without compassion destroys itself. The Confederation Council convened an emergency session after receiving this information. The chamber was deeply divided. These humans are the return of the architects, argued a Delvian representative. The most destructive warriors the galaxy has ever known. They are also the ones who chose peace, countered Elder Moore. The only one standing between us and the Vorlak. Fleet Commander Yultak rose slowly, his feathers shimmering with stress colors. I have fought alongside these humans now. They are indeed formidable warriors, but they fight to protect, not to conquer. I have begun referring to them as the dormant gods of war among my officers, beings of great power who choose restraint. The name spread quickly among Confederation forces. Humans noticed their allies watching them with new respect and lingering fear. Dr. Pierce continued his research, consulting with experts from multiple species. The picture that emerged was startling. Human DNA contained dormant sequences that matched the ancient architect genetic profiles. These sequences appeared to activate under extreme stress. It's like genetic memory, Pierce explained to Gray and Wells. Knowledge and skills encoded at a cellular level, accessible only when needed. You're saying we're descended from ancient warriors who deliberately regressed their technology and isolated themselves on Earth? Gray asked. The evidence points that way, Pierce confirmed. The architects were peacekeepers who became too powerful, too willing to use force. They chose to start over, to evolve again without their technological advantages. Wells looked troubled. The Vorlak seem to have recognized what we are. Their attacks have accelerated since confirming human involvement. The question is, Gray said, what do they know about us that we don't remember? The answer came sooner than expected. Deep space sensors detected a massive Vorlak fleet bypassing Confederation defenses, headed directly for Earth. When General Carter received the alert, she immediately ordered all human vessels to regroup for Earth's defense. Her Confederation liaison, Captain Jorel, seemed confused. Earth committed its full military forces to the conflict. Admiral Sofia Rivera took command of the combined fleet, gathering every available vessel to defend humanity's homeworld. The Confederation, recognizing the existential threat, sent what ships they could spare. The Vorlak fleet will reach Earth space in 36 hours, Admiral Rivera informed her captains. We are outnumbered 3-1. Commander Gray's Defiance joined the defensive line. His ship had taken heavy damage in previous engagements but remained combat-worthy. Gray had noticed something strange in recent battles. Human vessels consistently performed beyond their technical specifications. Engineers couldn't explain how ships survived impacts that should have destroyed them, or how targeting systems achieved impossible accuracy. Dr. Pierce had a theory. It's not just the ships performing better. It's the crews. Humans under extreme stress are demonstrating abilities we can't explain through conventional biology. Pierce worked with Lieutenant Foster to document cases of what they called combat clarity. Some human soldiers reported time seeming to slow during battles. Others described knowing enemy movements before they happened. Pilots spoke of feeling merged with their ships, responding to threats before sensors detected them. It's like muscle memory, Foster suggested, but for skills we never learned. Genetic memory, Pierce corrected. The architects encoded their combat knowledge into our DNA. The Vorlak arrived sooner than expected. The massive high ships emerged from faster-than-light travel near Luna, Earth's moon. The battle began immediately. Human vessels fought with desperate courage, but the numerical advantage of the Vorlak proved overwhelming. One by one, Earth ships fell. Confederation allies retreated to defensive positions around Earth itself. The Defiance engaged 3 enemy cruisers simultaneously. A direct hit damaged the bridge, killing several officers. Emergency containment fields failed. As life support systems crashed, Gray felt strange sensations washing over him. His vision blurred, then sharpened to impossible clarity. Suddenly, he saw patterns in the Vorlak movements. Their attack formations, their weaknesses, their communication methods, all became transparent to him. Gray understood their tactics as if he had fought them 1,000 times before. "Reroute power to forward shields," he ordered. "Target the command node on the central ship, the structure that looks like a spine. Their hive connections are vulnerable there." His tactical officer looked confused. "Sir, how do you know?" "Just do it." The Defiance fired precisely at the spot Gray indicated. The Vorlak cruiser shuddered, then went dark. Its companion ships immediately broke formation, suddenly uncoordinated. "All ships," Gray broadcast, "target the spinal structures. Disrupt their hive communication." Across the battlefield, other humans experienced similar awakenings. Captain Reeves of the Intrepid suddenly understood Vorlak shield harmonics, allowing her weapons to penetrate their defenses. Lieutenant Walsh, leading a boarding action, instinctively navigated the alien vessel's layout as if she had built it herself. Admiral Rivera recognized the pattern. In a bold move, she implemented Emergency Protocol Prometheus, gathering these awakened individuals into special strike teams. Each team received authority to act on their intuitive knowledge without standard command approval. The tide of battle slowly turned. Human vessels, though taking heavy casualties, began to coordinate in ways the Vorlak couldn't predict. The alien advance faltered. In orbit around Mars, General Carter's Resolute protected evacuation ships. When her vessel was severely damaged, Carter experienced her own awakening. She saw not just the current battle, but connections to ancient conflicts, flashes of similar battles fought millennia ago. "They've attacked before," she realized. "Many times, and each time, we've stopped them." Dr. Pierce, monitoring neural activity among awakened personnel, made a final discovery. "It's not random," he told Admiral Rivera. "The awakenings follow a pattern. Those with the strongest protective instincts activate first." "What does that mean?" Rivera asked. "It means the architects encoded more than just combat skills. They preserved their values, their choice to protect rather than conquer. The dormant sequences activate when we fight for others, not for ourselves." The Battle of Luna, as it became known, raged for 3 days. Earth forces suffered terrible losses, but held their ground. The Defiance operating on emergency power and with a skeleton crew, led a final assault against the Vorlak command ship. Gray, now fully awakened to his genetic heritage, directed the attack with uncanny precision. "They fear us," he told his crew, "not because of what we are, but because of..." As the Vorlak forces regrouped at the edge of the solar system, Dr. Pierce made his final discovery. He called an urgent meeting with Admiral Rivera, Commander Gray, and the Confederation representatives. "The genetic memories we've accessed aren't just combat skills," Pierce explained, displaying complex neural patterns on the screen. "They're teaching us something about ourselves, about humanity's true strength." "Which is?" Rivera asked. "Choice," Pierce said simply. "The ability to choose peace despite being built for war. The Vorlak are biologically compelled to conquer. They have no choice. It's literally encoded in their DNA. But humans can override our instincts. We can choose another path." The Confederation representatives absorbed this information with growing understanding. That's why the architects isolated themselves, Gray realized. Not because they feared their power, but because they needed to evolve beyond it, to develop the capacity for choice. Colonel Harmon entered with fresh intelligence. The Vorlak are consolidating their forces for a final assault. Their command node has shifted to this location. He indicated a massive structure near Jupiter's orbit. We need to end this, Rivera decided. Colonel, prepare a joint human confederation strike force. Target their command node. The planning session that followed revealed how much had changed. Confederation officers now worked smoothly alongside their human counterparts, no longer disturbed by humanity's warrior nature. They had seen these dormant gods of war choose protection over destruction, mercy over vengeance. Colonel Harmon would lead the assault team personally. Before departure, he met with the Confederation Council one last time. We fight today not just for Earth, but for all peaceful worlds, Harmon told them. Humans remember now what we once were, and what we chose to become. We will carry that knowledge into battle. The Joint Strike Force departed for Jupiter's orbit. Among them were the most fully awakened humans, those whose genetic memories had activated most completely. They moved and fought with the confidence of warriors who had faced this enemy countless times before. The final battle began with a coordinated assault on the Vorlak command structure. Human vessels flew attack patterns that seemed impossible, displaying maneuvers that defied conventional tactics. Confederation ships provided support, their crews now working through their biological aversion to violence out of necessity. Colonel Harmon led the boarding party onto the massive Vorlak command node. They fought their way through corridors filled with drone soldiers until they reached the central chamber. There, they discovered the truth. The chamber contained thousands of interconnected Vorlak in suspended animation, their minds linked in a hive consciousness. This was the controlling intelligence behind the invasion, a collective mind pursuing conquest because it knew nothing else. Harmon had the power to destroy it completely. His team had planted explosives throughout the structure. One command would end the Vorlak threat forever. Instead, he opened a communication channel. I know you can understand me, he said to the hive mind. We fought before, many times across many millennia. You destroyed the original architect civilization, and you fear our return. The chamber's lights pulsed in response. Acknowledgement. But we're not who we were, Harmon continued. We've evolved. We now offer you what the original architects couldn't. A choice. Withdraw your forces and live, or continue this fight and perish. The decision is yours. For long moments, nothing happened. Then, one by one, Vorlak ships began jumping to faster-than-light travel, retreating from the solar system. In the aftermath, Ambassador Wells negotiated humanity's new role in the Confederation, not as members but as partners. Humans would become peacekeepers, channeling their capacity for violence into defense of peaceful species who never developed such capabilities. 1 month later, Commander Gray stood before a class of Confederation officers, teaching them about human history and philosophy. In ancient Earth cultures, he explained, we had a concept called the warrior poet, someone capable of both creation and destruction, who chooses restraint as their greatest strength. A young Altarian raised his hand. Is that what humans are? Warrior poets. Gray smiled. We're trying to be. For thousands of generations, we evolved as predators and warriors. Then, as the architects, we became conquerors and nearly destroyed ourselves in the process. Our ancestors chose to start over, to hide our nature even from ourselves until we learned wisdom. Now we remember who we were and choose who we will become, Gray replied. That's the true strength of humanity. Not our capacity for violence, but our ability to choose peace despite it.